Hello, everybody. Welcome to Movies by McManus, the channel where we break down movies, comics, television, books, any type of media you're into in the context of who created it and what effect it's trying to have on the world. Today, we're going to be talking about the HBO TV show The Sopranos, created by David Chase. This is actually my favorite TV show of all time, and it's 6 seasons long, and it's going to take too long for me to summarize the whole thing, so I'm just going to do it very briefly. The show follows Tony Soprano. He's a mafia boss who suffers from anxiety attacks and depression. To treat these, he goes to see a therapist. Now, it's very hard for Tony to kind of show his emotions because he's brought up in this very Italian culture where men don't talk about their feelings. And that's kind of the main conflict of the show, between Tony basically trying to get a grip of his emotions. Briefly, I want to bring up David Chase, the creator of The Sopranos, and just relate his personal life to the show. David Chase, his entire teenage life, had actually suffered from anxiety attacks and depression, and he lived with very overbearing parents who never really accepted that there was something wrong with him. So we do see how David Chase's personal life bleeds into the show, especially with the character of Livia Soprano, who is actually based off of David Chase's real-life mother. Now, normally I would talk about David Chase and what he's trying to accomplish with The Sopranos, what message he's trying to send to the audience, but I want to do something a bit different with this episode. We are rooting for someone the entire show who is morally bankrupt. So I really want to dive into the theme of damnation and point the question towards our viewers of, is Tony Soprano going to hell? Well, yes, he is. He's killed a lot of people, but I think it goes a bit deeper than that. So let's go all the way forward to the ending of the show, the last scene, in fact. The Sopranos has a very famous and some would say anticlimactic final scene. Tony Soprano basically waits in a restaurant for his family to arrive. One by one, his wife and then his son arrive at the restaurant. Finally, his daughter walks into the room. Tony looks up and cut to black. The end. Now, many fans have speculated that this cut to black is in fact the moment that Tony Soprano is murdered, and there is actually some evidence to back this up. In an earlier episode, the first episode of the last season, Tony is talking to his brother-in-law Bobby, and Bobby tells him, when you're murdered, you probably don't even hear it happen. Everything probably just goes black. This is literally what happens in the final scene, so maybe that's what David Chase is trying to say. In the last scene, the camera keeps cutting to a man who fans speculate is Tony Soprano's killer. He's sitting in the corner of the restaurant, and right before the cut to black, he walks into the bathroom, which is right next to Tony. Now, the imagery of a hitman coming out of the bathroom to kill someone in a restaurant alludes to another famous mafia movie, The Godfather, where Michael Corleone kills 2 people after coming out of a bathroom. To push this point further, in an earlier Season 2 episode, From Where to Eternity, Tony's nephew Christopher has a near-death experience, where he claims he saw one of Tony's earlier victims, Michael Palmisi. Christopher warns Tony, Mikey says 3 o'clock. This may be a reference to the bathroom being on Tony's right side, or his 3 o'clock. So these clues may be David Chase's way of hinting at Tony's final fate, but I would argue something different. I would say that it doesn't matter if Tony is killed at the end, because by the time the camera goes black, Tony is already in hell. Let's get back to that Season 2 episode, From Where to Eternity. In it, Tony's nephew Christopher is shot, he's in a coma, and he's legally dead for about a minute. When he wakes up, he warns Tony and fellow mobster Paulie Walnuts that he visited hell where his father is and all the other mobsters. He's told that there's a spot waiting for him in hell when he finally dies, and he warns Tony and Paulie that there are spots waiting for them also. The idea put forward in this episode is that these mobsters are already damned, that their final resting place has already been decided, and no matter what they do from this point forward, there's really no escaping their fate. Paulie Walnuts takes this to heart. He cuts off his donations to the church and seemingly abandons his religion altogether. See, according to Paulie, what's the point of trying to cozy up to God if he's going to hell no matter what? Christopher also seems to have accepted his fate. In a later episode, when talking to his fiancée about his Uncle Tony, he says the line, "That's my guy, that's my Uncle Tony, that's the man I'm going to hell for." So, Paulie and Christopher seem to have accepted the fact that they are going to hell, but Tony is a bit different. Tony is in denial about his final damnation. In that same episode, Tony tells his therapist that he doesn't believe mobsters go to hell. He believes that hell is reserved for the worst of the worst, people who kill for pleasure, and that mobsters, they just don't make the cut. He explains that being in the Mafia, you're in a situation where everybody knows the stakes, and everybody knows that at some point you may have to kill or be killed. Tony actually compares his crew to soldiers and says that soldiers don't go to hell.
We're soldiers, Soldiers don't go to hell.
While Tony may not believe that all mobsters go to hell, he does believe that mobsters are destined to spend their final days in prison. Several times throughout the show, Tony makes mention of the fact that, for someone in his position, the best case scenario is a life sentence in a federal prison. It's either that or being murdered. In a way, the idea of mobsters having a spot reserved for them in hell is almost a metaphor for prison. It's a place where mobsters have their final resting that there is no escape from. If you want to be part of the mob, that's the price of admission. In the episode Fortunate Son, Christopher finally becomes a made man, or an official member of the Mafia. The induction ceremony has a lot of religious imagery, and Christopher even burns a picture of a saint in his palms, while saying the line, "May my soul burn in hell if I ever betray my family." This scene can be viewed as Christopher selling his soul over to the mob. To be in the mob, not only is he damning himself to an eternity of suffering, but he's also committing the final years of his life to being in a federal prison, or a man-made version of hell. We see this proven in the characters of Junior Soprano and Johnny Sack. These two characters, at one point in the show, were the two most powerful mobsters. But they spend the entire last season locked away, slowly dying in federal prison. Junior Soprano going crazy from dementia, and Johnny Sack slowly dying of cancer. Prison has become a personal hell for both these characters. So let's relate this to the final scene. Before the famous cut to black, Tony is talking with his wife Carmela. He tells Carmela that one of his top captains has become a government informant, and that he, Tony, will probably be indicted soon. Tony has seen this coming, and there's a tone of acceptance in his voice. He realizes that his career as a gangster is in the endgame, and his fate of serving life in a federal prison is finally here. The final point I want to make is this. We can debate the cut to black all we want, we can debate if Tony is killed or not, but it really doesn't matter. Because whether Tony is killed now, or sentenced to prison later on, the outcome is the same. Tony Soprano is going to hell. Now, I would never discourage theorizing, so if you do have an idea about the ending, or you just want to talk about The Sopranos, leave a comment. And if you like this video, subscribe to our channel, or check out our podcast. And follow us on social media at Movies by McManus. I'm your host, Greg. Have a good night.